Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Greetings and welcome to Refuge Depot. And today we're going to be talking about Blackout Ready, essential steps for home power failure preparedness. And as we may have known in the news, there was a major blackout that affected not just the city, but it affected not just the city or it affected a countries, if you will. So just to give us just a little bit of background on what happened on April the 25th, 2005, a massive blackout struck Spain and Portugal, affecting tens of millions of people across the Iberian Peninsula. The outage began approximately 12:30 p.m. local time when the Spanish electrical grid experienced a sudden loss of 15 gigawatts of power, equivalent to about 60% of the country's demand at that moment. So I'm going to play a clip. It's about 3 minutes long, and then we'll get into what you can do to prepare yourself and your family in case of a blackout because there's already predictions, and I'll put it on the screen a little later, that this summer is going to be a serious heat wave. And with that heat wave, people are going to be turning on their air conditioners and whatever they're going to be using to try to stay cool. And so this is going to put a large strain on the power grid. And as I'm going to go into it with you, that the American power grid is seriously antiquated, just like just about all of the other infrastructure structures in America. It's so antiquated. And this is because those who are in leadership, they have put more into the military budget than they've allocated towards the infrastructure. And so now we're paying a serious price. And so let's just get on into this. I'll go ahead and play this clip, and um, we'll get into how you can prepare here in a second.
On April 28th, 2025, Spain and Portugal experienced one of the most extensive power outages in European history, affecting over 50 million people and disrupting daily life across the Iberian Peninsula. The blackout began around 12:33 p.m. local time and lasted for nearly 23 hours in
Mm.
some areas, with full restoration achieved by the following morning. What happened? The outage caused widespread disruptions. Transportation, trains and subways halted, leaving approximately 35,000 passengers stranded. Airports.
Now, I just want to say before we continue, I want you to really think about what this power outage, how it affected the people. Let me back it up just a little bit because I want you to think about how it affected the people and what you would do in a situation if you were stranded on elevators, on trains. Um, there was just a number of different, and you got to even think about people who use certain devices to stay alive, right? And those devices cutting off just like that and not being restored for 23 hours. So that right there lets you know that if you don't have a backup generator that can last for 23 hours and you need that to stay alive, then there was a lot of deaths that occurred. As we were saying, that this is Spain and Portugal. This is not just the city. This is a country with millions of people. So let's go ahead and back it up and then listen to once again and think of what you would do if you were in this situation.
Daily life across the Iberian Peninsula. The blackout began around 12:33 p.m. local time and lasted for nearly 23 hours in some areas, with full restoration achieved by the following morning. What happened? The outage caused widespread disruptions. Transportation, trains and subways halted, leaving approximately 35,000 passengers stranded.
Mm.
Airports, major airports, including Madrid's Barajas International Airport, lost power, leading to flight cancellations and delays. Communication. Mobile networks and internet services were severely affected, with web connections dropping to 17% of normal usage. Public services. Traffic lights failed, hospitals operated on emergency generators, and ATMs were non-functional. The blackout also extended to parts of southwestern France and Andorra, though these regions experienced shorter outages. Possible causes? While the exact cause remains under investigation, several factors are being considered. Grid instability.
mm,
A sudden loss of 15 gigawatts, about 60% of Spain's electricity demand, occurred within 5 seconds, leading to a collapse of the national grid. Renewable energy dependence. Spain and Portugal's heavy reliance on renewable energy sources, such as wind and solar, which lack the grid inertia provided by fossil fuels, may have contributed to the grid's vulnerability.
mm.
Rare atmospheric phenomenon. Some reports suggest that extreme temperature variations caused anomalous oscillations in high voltage power lines, leading to synchronization failures across the interconnected European electricity network. Cyber attack or sabotage.
Mm.
Although initial analyses have ruled out cyber attacks, investigations are ongoing to determine if sabotage played a role. Aftermath and restoration. Power restoration efforts began promptly, with Spain's electricity grid operator, Red Electrica, estimating a 6 to 10 hour time frame for recovery. By 7 a.m. on April 29th, 99% of electricity demand had been restored in Spain, with full restoration achieved by 11 a.m. The blackout resulted in significant economic losses,
Mm.
estimated at
Think
1.6
about
billion
that.
euros and at least 7 fatalities in Spain. This incident underscores the need for robust infrastructure and grid management systems, especially as countries transition to renewable energy sources. Investments in grid upgrades, battery storage, and technologies that maintain grid frequency are essential to prevent future occurrences.
All right. So, man, that was a lot. So let's look at it real quick. We're talking about blackout had an immediate and dramatic effect on the lives of millions in both countries. Traffic lights failed, causing chaos on roads where police had to direct traffic manually. Public transportation systems were halted, trains were stranded, and airports faced significant disruptions with numerous light flight cancellations. Many businesses closed their doors as they lost power, forcing them to revert to cash transactions. Now, think about that when we talk about disaster preparedness, we're always saying that you should have cash somewhere in your home in a safe because when the power goes out, you are not going to, of course, be able to use your credit cards. You're going to have to rely on cash. And as the economy begins to implode, cash may be something I remember reading where one country they had to have wheelbarrows of cash. So cash is going to be something that you're going to need. It's best if you can to invest in gold, but that's another story. It says by late Monday evening, power was finally restored across the areas in both countries. However, full recovery took longer as authorities worked through backlogs in transportation and other services impacted by the blackout. So, this program, Refuge Depot, focuses on Black survival, right? So, when we talk about the services being restored, brothers and sisters, this is where we are really going to, in truth, going to have to come together as a people, pull our resources, and we're going to have to rely on each other because you already see the climate in America. You already see the climate in America. This climate that's in America is the same climate that occurred right before the Holocaust. This same climate is the climate that you it's the climate that you see throughout history, particularly European history, where you see the implosion of a country and the explosion of war and conflict. And so that's what's going to be taking place, including civil unrest. So let's go ahead and get on into this a little bit more. So the blackout represents one of the largest, it represented one of the largest failures in European history and highlights the vulnerability within the modern electrical grid as transportation as transition towards renewable energy resources. And so once again, when we look at the power grid in America, you know that this summer, if it's going to be as hot as they say it's going to be, then you we are going to see rolling blackouts. One of the things that you have to understand about the power grid is that many times they're connected to other grids, and what you have when one power grid goes down is you have a cascading effect, and that could cause blackouts to affect not just one city but numerous cities. So let's just go into just a little bit of history of blackouts in America, and then we'll go ahead and get into what we can do to prepare. So blackouts in the United States have a long and complex history, often resulting from a combination of human error, natural disasters, and infrastructure failures, right? So today, we have to also include domestic terrorism and possibly foreign terrorism. But we definitely want to look at domestic terrorism because I know a lot of times, especially in Western media, they like to talk about, these foreign terrorists who are, here. But let's be honest, when we look at America, a lot of the terrorism that takes place in America, it's more domestic terrorism than it is foreign. But in this day and time, you're probably going to have a little bit of both. Let's be honest. Um, so we talked about human error, natural disasters, which we're talking about the heat wave, but we're also talking about extreme cold weather. They were talking about oscillation, right? So now we have these extreme weather patterns that we're experiencing all over the United States. One day you could have it'll be in the 70s or 80s, and before you know it, it drops right down into the 30s. And so these extreme oscillations in temperature, it causes a demand on the power grid that it's not able to supply. So let's go into some of the major. So the Northwest blackout, that was in 1965. That happened on November 9th, 1965. Over 30 million people were left without power for up to 13 hours across several states, including New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Now, this is in 1965, before I was born, right? Just a little bit before I was born. Okay, so the blackout was primarily caused by human error when when a protective relay at a transmission line was incorrectly set. A surge in power due to increased demand during cold weather led to a cascading failure throughout the grid, what I just spoke about. In 1977, this blackout occurred on July. This is in the middle of summer, right? And affected approximately 9 million people. So these blackouts are huge. Do not think that it's just going to be localized. We're talking about millions of people being in the dark for possibly days, because we know that, you know, well, we'll go into more of it later, but it was triggered by lightning strikes, nature. And remember, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they teach us that God uses na- uses the forces of nature as a weapon against the wicked. So when we look back at Moses and Pharaoh and the nine plagues that, and some say 10, that struck Pharaoh, it decimated the Egyptian economy. And look at it today. What they are not telling you and I is that FEMA is bankrupt. Why is FEMA bankrupt? The agency, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, why is it bankrupt? Because they're pouring money into the military industrial complex and they're abandoning the American people. You got to see this with your own eyes. They want to implement a war with China. They want to implement a war on behalf of Zionist Israel with Iran. If this happens, then this will devastate the supply line, and you can forget about the grid. You and I are going to have to survive just due to the fact that there won't be any supplies. The supplies are already being cut because of the tariffs. Now just think of what would happen if a war broke out. So let's get into this. So that was caused by lightning strikes that caused circuit breakers to trip. The outage coincided with economic turmoil in the city, leading to widespread looting and arson. So, on 1982, the West Coast blackout that happened on December the 22nd. High winds knocked down key transmission towers along the West Coast, causing about 2 million homes and businesses to lose power. Communication failures exacerbated the situation as control uh, instructions could not be relayed effectively. So there you go with the communication. So one of the things that you should definitely do, and we'll get into all this a little later. And I wanted to say too that a lot of the supplies that I'm talking about, I put in the description, and you can go and you can support our program through our Amazon store. You can find a lot of these through our Amazon store. And so, yeah, so it was just high winds. And you know that we've been getting some extreme weather lately. And the thing that you see now are these solar farms, right? But if you've noticed, you've seen a lot of hail, and some of these solar farms are decimated by these hailstorms. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan reiterates that we're going to see hail the size of footballs. You can take it or you can let it alone. That's what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan share with us. So on in 2000 and or 23 in the year 2003, it says that was in August. This blackout became one of the largest in history. And this is in 2003, impacting over 55 million people across 8 states and parts of Canada for up to 2 days. A software bug at First Energy Corporation failed to alert operators about overloaded transmission lines hitting untrimmed trees, leading to widespread outage. I mean, think about it. It's just nature. You Nature is so unpredictable that they can't even uh you can't predict it. So, a few more. Um it's in the Northwest blackout in 2011. The blackout affected approximately 2.7 million people, mainly in California, due to human error during maintenance work on critical equipment combined with high demand for continued hot weather. There's that hot weather again, and just two more. And well, we'll just go to Hurricane Sandy. That was in 2012, and Hurricane Sandy impacted over 24 states, but hit New York particularly hard, where many residents lost power for up to 2 weeks due to flooding and extensive damage to infrastructure. So, the history of blackouts in America highlights the vulnerability within the electrical grid system that can arise from both natural events and human mistakes. Each major blackout has prompted changes aimed at improving reliability and response strategies within the electric utility sector. So, one of the things that has to be understood once again is that when you look at the politics, when you look at the political power, you know, they basically just abandoned the American people, the infrastructure. You do see a lot of work that's going on. Of course, they're trying to pour a lot of money into um, bringing up a better power grid and infrastructure. But the question that sometimes you have to ask the question is it really for you and I, or is it for something else? Because we know that AI is taking artificial intelligence is taking up a lot of energy. And so the question you have to maybe ask yourself is that will that energy the energy that it needs to power AI, will that be siphoned away from the people? And my, I would say yes, it would. Yes, it is going to be siphoned away from the people because I think that when we look at government, it's totally abandoned the people. And so when you think of the word public, like public schools, public hospitals, public this or public that, all of it is being privatized. And with the privatization of all these institutions comes the erosion of your rights, comes the erosion of your ability to get what the government should supply is now being put into private hands that can deny you, you know, um, your essential rights, and you have no recourse. And this is how bad it's getting. And it's going to get even worse when everything becomes digital. When you talk about, the doing away with the money and then it going to digital, then that's total control. So let's go ahead and look at the current state of the power grid in the United States. It's a vast network of power plants, transmission lines, and distribution systems that provide electricity to millions of homes and businesses. However, the grid is facing significant challenges, including aging infrastructure. Why would that be in the most powerful country in the world? Why would you have a aging infrastructure? Why would you have an aging power grid? Think about that. Increased demand and the impact of climate change. According to North American Electric Reliability Corporation, that's NERC, the power grid is expected to face increased stress during the summer months due to high temperatures and peak demand. In fact, the NERC warned in May that this combination of factors would put most of the US at an elevated risk of blackouts over the summer. So think about that. We used to look at Cuba and Venezuela and Puerto Rico, and these rolling blackouts. In some places, of course, in third world countries, these rolling blackouts. Now these rolling blackouts are affecting America. So the Bible is so true. As thou hast done, so shall it be done. And if you look at everything that America has done through its foreign policy that the American people knew nothing about, everything that has been done to other people is now coming on America. Disease, I mean, just about everything. So, impact of heat waves on the power grid are a significant threat to the power grid as they can cause a surge in electricity demand as people turn on their air conditioner to cool their homes. This increased demand could put a strain on on the grid, particularly if it coincides with other extreme weather events. And once I said again, is that AI, artificial intelligence, which they're putting a lot of resources into, it takes a lot of power, and they're not even telling you how much power it takes. In 2023, the U.S. power grid served nearly 15 million gigawatt hours of electricity across the lower 48 states, about 1.6 times the electricity produced by every nuclear power plant in the world on a given day. However, despite record power demand, the grid largely avoided blackouts. Given the current state of the power grid and the increased frequency and severity of heat waves, it's likely that the power grid will be impacted by the heat this summer. In fact, a study published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology estimated that a blackout scenario in Phoenix, Arizona during a major heat wave would kill, listen to this, would kill 13,000 people and require nearly 800,000 people to seek emergency medical care. This is why it's so important for us to just not prepare on a resource level where we have, water and food and things like that stored up, but we have to prepare our bodies. We have to get in shape because that extra weight is going to be a heavy burden, no pun intended. It's going to be a heavy burden. So just think about these things. It says that the grid operators and utilities are tracking steps to prepare for the summer months, including uh, procuring extra electricity generation, refining energy usage forecasts, and ensuring that power plants are ready to meet peak demand. Now, another question that we might have to ask is through Doge, right? Through Elon Musk cutting all these jobs, how will that affect, you know, the power grid and affect electricity stability as we move into these hotter months? And this is something to think about. So we'll wrap this part up by just saying that the power grid in America is likely to be impacted by the heat wave this summer, but the likelihood of severity of the impact are difficult to predict. Difficult to predict, but there's going to be, without a doubt, some power failure, without a doubt. So there are steps to prepare, and we're going to go into that because there's nothing really that we can do about the power grid. I mean, if it's hot, it's hot, and you're going to try to do your best to stay warm and not overheat. I know that last spring and summer, they showed squirrels and they called them splaining. I think it was called splaining, splaining, right? Where they just would lay their body flat on the ground in the shade on the concrete, so that that cold that would cool their bodies down. But it that is something that we're going to look at. We're going to look at right now. So physical preparedness, building your foundation. Let's look at an emergency kit essentials. So lighting, of course, if the power goes out, you're going to need lighting. So there are flashlights, and once again, a lot of these, all these products that we're talking about is going to be in the description, and it would behoove you to prepare now. Seriously. So lighting, headlamps, lanterns, battery powered and hand crank extra batteries. And let me see, I think I got one, even though I'm have to go through my go through my green screen, mess that up. But look, so this I always keep, and it's green, so it's of course, but it has a solar powered where you have the battery. It also has a hand crank, right? On here, you also have a flashlight. And I'm just showing you this to let you know that we also do some preparing over here as well. We're not just talking the talk, but we trying to walk the walk, right? So you definitely want that. Now they have generators that are both gas powered and solar powered, and they have dual powered, right? Where it's gas and solar. So one of the things, of course, you always want to be careful of when you have a gas powered generator is the fumes. So you definitely want to be cognizant of that and make sure you have plenty ventilation. Communication, battery powered hand crank radios, whistle, charging devices like battery packs and solar chargers. And I would definitely invest in some type of solar powered backup where you can just put it out in the sun and charge your batteries and things like that. So I would definitely look into that. You definitely want to have definitely a first aid kit, comprehensive first aid, and knowledge of basic first aid. So if you don't know first aid, you can go and you could probably Google it in your area, and they definitely have first aid classes. I would learn some first aid and CPR just in case, because as we move into these difficult times and we're looking at more extreme weather, you may have to use that knowledge and put it into practice. So, food and water, non perishable food supplies. Non perishable foods means that these foods are able to be stored in a way that they last for a long time. So, of course, one of the things that you're going to have when you have a power outage is that all that food that you have in the refrigerator and the food that you have in the freezer, after a period of time, it will begin to defrost. And as time goes on, because it has defrosted, it will be dangerous for you to try to eat that food. So this is one of the things that you have to definitely consider, that after definitely 24 hours, and definitely don't eat it after 48 hours. So, but non-perishable foods and water for a minimum of 3 days, ideally longer. Ideally, if you can get you a pantry and have you a supply of food for at least 3 months, that is ideal, right? That's ideal. Um, You also want to have a water purification system. And there are a number of different water purification um, systems that you can use. And one of the things that you'll also have to be aware of is that with the power outage, you may not be able to have water coming into your home. So that's something that you got to consider. One of the things that you can do is you can go down to your local grocery store and they have some of those 5 gallon uh, of water that you can store up some of those, and you may have to if they're stored up long enough, you may have to use some treatment to make sure that the water is still safe to drink. Tools, multi tools, a can opener, and I'm talking not about a electric can opener that many of us may have. We have the electric can. You want a manual can opener because you're going to be looking at them cans and you are not going to be able to open those cans without a serious effort. You want duct tape and you want wrench and pliers. And so duct tape, that is, I think after the wheel was discovered, then next came duct tape, right? And one of the things that was also when I was growing up was a tool that could be used was the wire hangers that you would used to hang your clothes on. Use them for everything. Use them for an antenna. Use them to prop up the muffler on your car. Everything, right? Personal items, medication, hygiene supplies, blankets, and extra clothing. And as we always talk about, it would be good to have a to go bag that you can use that will, um, yeah, that you can have in your as a part of your supply. Cash, small denominations, not big denominations, small denominations. Don't have cash where it is in 50s and hundreds because you won't be able to break that. So have small denominations as electronic transmissions may be unavailable. Of course, right? Without power, you most likely won't be able to go to the ATM. Home safety measures. So identify and knowing how to manually operate essential utilities like the gas shut off. You definitely want to know where to shut off the gas just in case the power goes out. Unplug sensitive electronics to prevent damage from power surges. So as they begin to turn the electricity back on, you may have these power surges. And if you don't have a surge protector and you don't have your power out off to your electronics, they could be severely damaged, right? Secure outdoor items that could be blown around. Having a fire extinguisher and smoke and carbon monoxide detectors with battery backups readily accessible. And so, of course, this is very important too, because once again, when the power goes out, you may have a situation where something could catch on fire and you may not be aware of it. So, you definitely want to have these things uh, accessible. Alternative power sources, and we talked about that briefly, but you definitely want to have a generator of some kind if you can, types, um, and you want to have some fuel that's saved up for them. One of the things that you can definitely do when the power goes out, if you got a outside grill, propane is excellent, right? So you can still cook your food right there on the grill. So if you don't have a grill, you can get, of course, one of those small ones and have that on standby and ready. Okay, solar powered options or portable chargers, small systems like that, and safety precautions for all alternative. power sources. So, one of the things that we want to talk about right now is the mental preparedness, because when the power goes off and it's off for an extended period of time, it may definitely cause some mental anxiety, right? And so what you want to do to help you in this mental state is establish meeting points if separated. So, all of this can, if you prepare now, and you should prepare now and not take this lightly. If you prepare now and have a plan in place for you and your family when stuff hits the fan, then you will not be as mentally taxed as you would if this hit and you were totally unprepared and your children are somewhere in school and you cannot communicate with them, or your wife or your husband or your grandmother, or whatever family member. So have establish a plan, uh, a disaster or emergency preparedness plan, and establish a meeting point if separated. Having emergency contact information readily available. And so, one of the things that you should do if you have young children is that if they go to school, maybe you should put in their backpack or whatever they might carry with them, numbers, physical numbers that they can um, access, just in case the cell phones go out, because I know a lot of us, we don't remember even our mother's number or our sons or our daughter's number, because it's just right there in the phone and we just hit that button and it calls them, right? Sometimes we don't even hit the button, we just say, hey, blah blah, call such and such, right? So you definitely want to have physical numbers, and at least have them memorize maybe the mother or the father's number. Discussing roles and responsibilities within the household. So, of course, who's going to do what when the power goes out? Who's going to do what, when this situation arises or that situation arises? Who's going to be in charge? And so those type of things, if you begin to prepare now, when things uh, hit the fan, then you'll be able to move out on those type of things. Staying informed through reliable sources like the battery powered radio that I just showed you. So you definitely want to be informed. You definitely want to pay attention to the weather radio and things like that, because one of the things that it talked about was looting. And so when you have power out, you always have those type of individuals who will try to take advantage of that power outage. And so you definitely want to pay attention to your radio, and pay attention to you definitely want to build up a relationship with your neighbors, right? A good relationship. You want to know if they're friend or foe. So you definitely want to do that as well. So you want to engage in calming activities like reading, board games. Once again, these devices are cool, but they are powered by a battery. And if that battery goes out, you're going to be sitting there looking at the paint dry on the walls. It's probably already dry, so you're just going to be looking at the walls. So, you definitely want to have some type of a board game. There's a lot of good ones out there. You all know what they are. I don't have to name them, but man, get your family around and just get right on into some of these games, right? Just cards. If you have that, sometimes that can last for hours, but you definitely want to have board games. So maintaining a routine as much as possible, knowing when to seek support if needed. So communication strategies, we'll get into that. So communication strategies, it's important. Sorry about that. It's important to have a hold on, battery powered radio for information, using text messages sparingly with low bandwidth. And in some cases, you can download an app on your phone and your phone becomes a walkie-talkie. You can download an app and your phone becomes a walkie-talkie. So that's something that you might want to look into. And so uh, when the power goes down and everybody's on their phone trying to call their family and friends, and then the lines are jammed up and you can't get through, you can have that walkie-talkie on your phone and just connect to your loved ones. So identifying out of state contacts as communication relays. And this is what we always say, always have an out of state contact number, and they have your number because you might have heat wave, tornado, hurricane, fires, whatever, and you have to evacuate. You got to call Aunt Josephine. You call Uncle Willie and get out of town, get to safety. Lastly, keeping children and pets safe and comfortable. So, of course, many of us are attached to our pets, and that's cool. That's no problem. But definitely, we definitely want to look out for our children, right? The pets. Let's be honest. If they haven't been genetically destroyed as many of these dogs are, right? That if the dog was left to survive on its own, it could not because of how it was bred, which is ridiculous, right? But that's neither here nor there. But what we definitely want to do is take care of our family, right? So having comfortable item and age appropriate creative activities for our children is going to be a must. It's going to be a must for their sanity. It's going to be a must for your sanity. So, ensuring pets and having food and water and safe spaces. And like I said, you know, um, my whole objective is just for your immediate family. And I know that the pets are family, but definitely look out for our immediate family. And so, with that, I'm hoping that that was informational to you, the where you can begin to um, prepare yourself if you're not already prepared. Definitely look into getting you non-perishable food and water. Get you some battery powered lights, and also, you can use candles. You got to be very careful at night of using candles, but if you have those little candles that fit up under your aromatherapy, you can use, if you have a number of those little candles, you can even cook with those candles, right? You could put those candles on a tray, put it in the oven, put something right up on top of it, close it up. 30 minutes later, you're ready to eat. So you just have to begin to think outside of the box as well. When these type of disasters take place, you may have to think outside of the box, and that's it. So I'll go ahead and close with another video clip, and this one was after the power was turned on, and so we'll go ahead and close out with that. And we want to, of course, invite you to like, share, and follow Refuge Depot as we are honing our craft, if you will, to help our people be resilient and survive the fall of America. And um, let's not be unaware that we definitely see the fall, and we definitely see the climate in America where anti, it's just anti-human. If you really want to know the truth, we're all in danger because we are under the leadership of people who are psychopaths. They're antisocial human beings. And whatever solution that they come up with, it's never a solution that is one that is beneficial to humanity. It's only beneficial to a small clique of people. And so this is undoubtedly going to cause a the masses of the people to rise up. Who can't see this? Anyway, let's go ahead and play this clip and we'll close out with it. We'll make a few comments on it, but we'll go ahead and close out with it. All right. Uh, Yeah.
Spanish power distributor Red Electrica said that restoring power to large parts of the country after a massive and unprecedented outage Monday that also hit Portugal could take 6 to 10 hours. The company declined to speculate on the causes of the blackout. The Portuguese National Cybersecurity Center issued a statement saying there was no sign the outage was due to a cyber attack. Eduardo Prieto, head of operations at Red
That's
Electrica,
a
told
possibility.
journalists it was unprecedented, calling the event exceptional and extraordinary. The
Not in
outage
these
hit
times.
across
It's
Spain
not.
and Portugal, including their capitals, knocking out subway networks, phone lines, traffic lights and ATM machines. Authorities said the cause was not immediately known, though one Portuguese official said the problem appeared to be with the electricity distribution network in Spain.
Mm.
The Portuguese cabinet convened an emergency meeting at the Prime Minister's residence, and Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez visited power distributor Red Electrica to follow efforts at restoring grid operations. The countries have a combined population of over 50 million people.
Mm.
It was not immediately clear how many were affected.
50
It is
million.
rare to have such a widespread outage across the Iberian Peninsula. A couple of hours later, Spain's electricity network operator said it was recovering power in the north and south of the peninsula, which would help to progressively restore the electricity supply nationwide. Portugal's government said the outage appeared to stem from problems outside the country, an official told national news agency Lusa.
Mm.
It looks like it was a problem with the distribution network, apparently in Spain. It's still being ascertained, Cabinet Minister Leitão Amaro was quoted as saying.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of
And
all my tasks. I start by brain dumping
daggone
everything I need
commercial.
to get done.
Get out of here. Let's get back to this so we can end this up. So you can imagine, how the people were feeling, power being out, and they're looking down the street and nobody's power is on for miles around. So this is where you have to stay calm, you have to breathe deep, and you have to assess the situation, and you have to act in accord with what uh, the situation to be successful and live. Imagine that they're down underground in these tunnels. So you may not know where you're going to be when these blackouts occur. You may be stuck on an elevator, and this is why once again I say get into a mental state to where you will not panic and cause injury to yourself. Man, think about that. Traffic jams. You think traffic is bad now. Think about what would happen if this struck during rush hour and you're already waiting in these long lines. Let me just say something about these traffic jams. This is all due to the petroleum industry controlling the politics. Why isn't there a train, for instance, running from Dayton to Cincinnati to Columbus? Why are we on the roads? It's because the politicians have sold us out special interest group. This can't be. It, there's no future in this. These greedy bloodsuckers. They brought it on themselves. This is why it's an implosion and not an explosion from some external force. You don't have to worry about no Muslims attacking or no the Chinese attacking. The politicians are killing us. Look at just the power of being out. So as we close on out, one of the things that we're definitely going to have to do is be patient with each other, be courteous to each other. You know, you can imagine the road rage that will occur when the traffic lights go out and people are just so disrespectful and only think of themselves. So the best thing for you to do is to get home if you can and stay there, and if not, just find some safe place uh, to ride it out. This is also a reason why you want to have in your vehicle some emergency supplies in your vehicle, food, you want clothes,
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met
so you want all those type of things. So you just definitely don't want to be caught off guard. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching. May God continue to bless you and your family with the light of truth and understanding, and continue to follow us on Telegram, where we put out daily emergency preparedness tips. That's on Telegram. Just go to Telegram. If you're on there, just type in Refuge Depot and follow us on Telegram. I think we need just maybe like 30 more people, and we'll be able to automate it. When you get so many people, you can begin to do things like that. So check out our Telegram. And once again, may God continue to bless you. And we're going to go ahead and sign on out.